Ladies and gentlemen, this is a story that came out in the New York Times, September 21st, 2018. Workers overdose on the job and employers struggle to respond. Am I surprised? No, no, not at all. Jimmy Sullivan prepared for his job as a bricklayer the same way every morning for years, injecting a shot of heroin before leaving his car. The first time he overdosed on the job was in 2013 at a Virginia construction site. A coworker, who is his cousin, stealthily injected a dose of Narcan, an opioid antidote, into Mr. Sullivan's leg. He woke up and went straight back to work. The second time, in 2014, his cousin revived him again, and after resting for about an hour in his car, Sullivan was back on the job. His boss told him not to let it happen again, but within a month, Mr. Sullivan had again overdosed at the job. This time, another worker called 911. After a few hours at the hospital, he went back to work. Come on, these folks aren't going to get off of these drugs. And Narcan, with Narcan around, what reason would they have to stop? As the opioid plague continues to rage across the country, with a record 72,000 drug overdose deaths estimated in 2017, or lowballing the number, the fallout is increasingly manifesting itself at construction sites, factories, warehouses, offices, and other workplaces. A stunning 70% of employers reported that their businesses had been affected by prescription drug abuse, including absenteeism. That's one of the big things. And another one is, a lot of times these folks will get hired for jobs, wait for their first paycheck, and they go out and get high and don't return back to work. That's another very common thing that occurs. Positive drug test, injuries, accidents, and overdoses, according to a 2017 survey by the National Safety Council, a research and advocacy organization. At least 217 workers died from an unintentional drug or alcohol overdose while at work in 2016, up 32% from 2015, according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics. Workplace overdose deaths have been increasing by 25% or more a year since 2010. Those numbers don't include the many more overdose that don't end in death, like Mr. Sullivan, or accidents caused primarily or partly by drug impairment. Incident reports from the Occupational Safety and Health Administration paint a grim national picture of workplace overdose deaths. A mechanic at a Fiat Chrysler automobile plant in Michigan, a construction worker on a barge in Rhode Island, a crawfisherman in Louisiana, and a Sam's Club employer. They all died. My question to employers at this point, if you know all of these people are addicts and you got them on your job and you know what a risk it is having them there every day, all high and strung out on drugs, why are you not hiring people like many from the Black community who are not as strung out on opioids? See, ladies and gentlemen, you know what it is. They're going to keep trying to hang on to their people as long as they can, but it's going to come to a point in time. If they want to save their business, they're going to have to hire more Black people, more people in communities where they're not battling quite as hard with an opioid addiction. There's opioid addiction in the Black community, but it still is nothing like the white community. There's no way we're going to catch up to them, and they've been at this addiction for 20 years. We're not going to catch up to them. Not even in 5 years, we're not going to catch up to them. Okay. But despite the growing problem, many employers have turned a blind eye to addiction within their workforce, ill-equipped or unwilling to confront a complicated issue they don't know how to address, according to researchers and business executives. No, they are fighting to keep their own people employed, ladies and gentlemen. That's what's going on. The National Safety Council survey, which was based on interviews with 501 managers at businesses with 50 or more employees, found that fewer than 1 in 5 companies felt extremely well prepared to combat the opioid plague. Just 13% were very confident that they would identify risky use, and a little more than half said they screened all employees for drugs, but 40% of those had failed to screen for synthetic opioids like oxycodone and fentanyl. Employers have been asleep at the wheel, said David Chase, co-founder of Health Rosetta, a company that certifies employers' health benefits, and author of The Opioid Crisis Wake-Up Call. Some companies are key unwittingly enablers, and that's exactly what they are. If the majority, so what they're pretty much saying, y'all, the majority of the companies out here are turning a blind eye to all of their addicted employees. They see these people stumbling around and all zombified in those companies, but they choose to look the other way. That's what's going on out here right now. And like I said, it's a last-ditch effort to try to keep their own people employed. Even if they are in a high or drunk stupor every day, they will just struggle with it and keep dealing with it. And they know their productivity is down, and they are not making the money they could potentially make if they had a workforce that was not high on the job or drunk on the job every day. It is not that businesses are unaware of the toll the crisis is taking. Large employers spend $2.6 billion on treating opioid abuse and overdoses in 2016, up from $300 million 12 years earlier, according to Peterson Kaiser Health System Tracker. Those numbers do not include the cost of lost productivity. Workers who misuse pain medication miss an average of 29 days a year. Wow. That's almost a whole month of work they miss, compared with 10 and a half days for other employees. Yet many managers unwillingly to acknowledge drug use at their businesses. So they're just being willfully ignorant, y'all. They're being ignorant on purpose. If you ask them, they believe they have an opioid problem within their population. A very high percentage of them would say, no, we don't, said Pat Sullivan, Executive Vice President of Employee Benefits at Highland, a large insurance broker in Indiana that manages benefit plans for more than 19,000 businesses. And yet we have access to prescription reports that are absolutely telling there's abuse happening among their workers. You know what's going to happen? One of them are going to get badly injured or die in a bad accident on these jobs, and they're going to get sued. And when a lot of them start getting sued, they're going to start pushing these addicts away. I guess it just hasn't happened enough yet. Jimmy Sullivan, now 39, is slender and serious. He wears a heavy silver cross around his neck and has half finished tattoos of two barracuda teeth gnashing on his arm. A bricklayer for more than 2 decades, he is proud of his skill. I love my job all over the city. I drive around and say, hey, I built that. He says over lunch in Portland, Oregon, where he grew up and now lives. It's really tough work, and not too many people can do it. Well, one of my best friends, her father was a bricklayer. The construction industry has the second highest rate of pain medication and opioid misuse after the entertainment, recreation, and food business. About 1.3% of construction workers are thought to be addicted to opioids, or nearly twice the addiction rate for all working adults, according to data from 2012 through 2014 National Survey on Drug Use and Health. Construction workers had the highest proportion of heroin and methadone related overdose deaths in 2007 to 2012. According to the Center for Disease Control and Prevention in Massachusetts, a recent report found that 1 in 4 opioid deaths involve construction workers. Yeah, you know, plus, these guys got short life expectancies anyway from working out in the sun. Many of them don't even make it past their 60s because they really shouldn't be out there like that. But, some people just won't accept that about themselves. So let them die off. On the job injuries are common in the industry, and many workers begin their addiction with a prescription intended to help them get back to work. In 2016, 2 in 5 workers' compensation claims for prescriptions included opioids. Laborers tend to come and go on job sites, meaning employers often don't know much about their workers. Sullivan said he worked nonstop as a bricklayer in Portland during the 2000s despite a serious drug habit. In those days, crystal meth. By 2011, he was a father of 3 girls and often so strung out that he didn't recognize himself. Alarmed by his decent, he moved across the country to Newport News, Virginia, where he would be far from his dealers and drug using friends. Though he readily found a job in Virginia, he also quickly got hooked, this time to opioids. That part of the country was awash in cheap heroin and augmented. And yeah, it's a lot of synthetic opioids on the East, probably higher than on the West Coast, to be honest with you. And I can see how he came here and automatically got hooked on opioids. It's really not shocking. Now, it's talking about employer intervention. How do you have employer intervention when they are not even willing to recognize what's going on? They're just blatantly ignoring the fact that they got all these junkies nodding off every day on the job. And they know they can't pass a drug test. And that's why some of them are just skipping over the drug test because they know they would lose a huge portion of their workforce hanging on to these junkies. But no, no matter how much they keep saying they're working nonstop, they're not giving their best work, all high and messed up on all that fentanyl and heroin and opioids and all that stuff. They're not giving their best work. So, they're seeing all the erratic behavior and the absenteeism every day on these jobs. Um, it's not going to change. I mean, if the employers are doing this, then what are they other than enablers? I mean, you're being willfully ignorant about all these high people at your company. All right, I'm just going to go down a little. Sam Club, a division of Walmart, said in a statement that it provided mental health and substance abuse coverage to employees and offered an employee assistant program. Fiat Chrysler said in an email that it had adopted more stringent opioid prescribing guidelines in its health plan and supported the use of medicated assisted addiction treatment. So, in other words, methadone. Just one employer, Giovanna Painting in Spencerport, New York, agreed to an interview. Alan Hart, the company's president, said he was shocked when one of his employees was discovered dead from a heroin overdose in a porta potty on a job site in 2017. A recovered addict himself, Mr. Hart said he tries to be sympathetic and help workers get into rehab, though he does not provide health insurance. Well, what can you do, ladies and gentlemen? If you got an addiction problem in your country, then you have an addiction problem on many of these jobs out here. And I mean, look, I've seen videos of even people working in hospitals strung out. I posted one, some of you might remember. It was a nurse and she was nodding in a patient's room and they got their cameras out and actually filmed her. She was strung out. And this was a nurse. I tell you what, I wouldn't want anything from her. With her being in that condition, she can actually, accidentally give a patient the wrong medicines, or she could be sneaking and taking the medicine. These people will do anything to get high. They don't care. But I will leave the link to this article in the description box, ladies and gentlemen. America is one big mess. And it's going to continue to be one big mess because they literally do not know what to do about this major addiction that's going on here. And no one has a clear-cut solution. Everything they have tried failed. But please tell me what you think, ladies and gentlemen. Please leave your comment and subscribe. Don't forget to hit on the notification bell. And I will see you on the next video. Peace, family.